Welcome to a new Daily Top Askreddit video. Today's topic: how would you feel about a high school class called therapy where kids are taught how to set boundaries and deal with their emotions in a healthy manner? As a former high school student, I can tell you 60% of them would not take it seriously. Edit: this is a rough estimate. Depending on the class dynamic, it could be anything between 100% of the class and like 50, I'd say. The other way would be more realistic though, I feel like. Edit 2. If we use this comment section as a field experiment, I've found that for every positive opinion on this subject there are 2 to 3 negative ones, so my estimate of 60% was slightly low. Now, I know that Reddit might not be the perfect testing grounds, but you have to agree that there is a clear trend here. I'm going to be honest, I wouldn't. I doubt any high school system in the world right now would be able to do this properly, and therapy is a very individual thing. I don't think it can be taught in class. Edit: I feel like most people here are forgetting about the fact that this is high school we're talking about. I recently finished it and moved on to A-levels. I speak from experience when I say this won't work in a high school environment. Edit 2. Some of you think that I'm saying that teenagers are the sole problem here. It's not that at all. Teachers, school administration and students combined make this really hard to pull off, almost impossible even. I'm not talking about group counseling or group therapy, I'm talking about a full-on lesson time for this. Not all kids need it or know the importance of it, and lesson disruption is commonplace in high schools, needless to say. In my middle school through years 6 to 8 we had a specific group of people deemed by the grade counselor, who was a licensed or studying psychologist most of the time, and held these occasional therapy sessions, which helped THPSE kids a lot. I personally went to her a ton. She helped me get through a time where I had practically no friends, and was a target for constant bullying. Back then. Me neither. The 60% was just an estimate tbh, depending on the class it might be more like 9/10 peeps. My friend is training to be a social worker, and I'd currently working in a school. They do sessions on friendship/romantic relationships, boundaries and consent, and other modules which try to teach social and emotional healthy behaviors. It's not quite the same as what you're saying, but it does have elements of this. I think the key is you start young and then continue to build on it in different ways. The point I would make though is that this is not for teachers to teach, it's for social workers or therapists. I agree. Ex-social worker here. The sessions would be fine, but therapy designed by civil servants, vetted by school district superintendents, then approved by parents' groups, delivered by educators. No. That idea scares me. Can you imagine the fighting over the curriculum? Whose values would be front and center? Teachers are already expected to be everything to students, the list on them keeps growing. Let them do well in what they are trained to do. That idea scares me. Can you imagine the fighting over the curriculum? Whose values would be front and center? I hate to break it to you, but that's exactly what's happening, from elementary on. It's called social emotional learning and we're now expected to teach it explicitly. Much of it is based on middle-class white values, which tends to be entirely culturally incomparable with low-income or racially marginalized groups, and it's awful. Realistically, if anyone knows you're in that class, you're going to get bullied. And this is why high school sucks. No realistic mental health support. Mental health should be assessed and treated by a doctor. Teachers have no training on the matter and should not be entrusted with any responsibility regarding mental health. The sad truth is that kids are learning socially as well as mentally, so they have to engage with each other naturally for them to develop skills and defenses on their own. If an adult protects them all through high school, they will become a recluse as soon as they have to go into the real world. I would have firmly ignored about everything in it as a teenager at that age. I was okay in high school, but everything got set up for depression I have had since college that I haven't been able to shake. But looking back at me in high school, I don't think anyone could have gotten through. I had a series of a few sessions with a therapist my mom wanted my brother and I to do with her, and I hated them and wouldn't have considered going to any other therapist then, even though the therapist was really worried about me. I was 25 before I ever considered therapy. And you're never ready until you choose to go. My parents took me to people, waste of money. None of it meant anything until I walked in myself. I had a class in HS called Life Skills that was all about emotional health. It was a good thing. Sadly, one of our classmates, he and his girlfriend were both in the LS class, passed away mid-year. He fell out of a boat and couldn't swim. Having that group really helped us work though coming to grips with it. Rip Tiger. Sounds like a swimming class would have been a better use of time. Jesus dude. Take your upvote and get the fuck outta here. I can admit that life skills, emotional intelligence, emotional health would be better class names, but the support would be similar. Rip Tiger. There's already a massive push going on in the US to incorporate this kind of learning into classrooms in the form of SEL, social emotional learning. Research shows that it has to be comprehensive, though, and is actually most effective for early adolescents, roughly ages ~6~8 to 14. This is the stage when youth are both most receptive to such learning and, statistically, will benefit the most from it. Sequestering it into a single classroom setting at the high school level would not be of much use. One of the biggest points of vulnerability for at-risk youth is the transition into high school. Additionally, while high schoolers can benefit from SEL, the effect is dampened somewhat for reasons unclear. One hypothesis is simply that teenagers are at a point in their lives where they are growing more independent and as a result they are not as receptive to being taught life skills by adults in positions of authority. Assuming this to be the case, SEL could actually have a detrimental effect, as it interferes with other critical development in youths. Whatever the case may be, I maintain that it's important to focus more on SEL in adolescence, and that a class called therapy would not be in youth's best interests. I did a lot of small group counseling in school in the 6 to 14 age range, and as a 35-year-old I find myself automatically using the tools taught in those sessions. I wonder if all kids were to be put in small group settings and counseled, we might see better adults. It would require a lot of school physiologists. I think for the class to be effective it would definitely require competent, experienced teacher who listens. This is due to half of the class would treat it like a joke just as they do sex editor. You'd be surprised how much you can influence a student simply by giving them a comfortable place to sit. The school I worked at had a bunch of small sofas and other second-hand bits of living room furniture for students to use during group therapy. They were able to put their feet up and act like normal people instead of institutional members. Kinda the only way to get through middle/high school sex ed is to treat it like a joke. It was a joke when I was in school. All I remember is watching this video where a girl decides to have sex with a guy and her inner monologue is all I feel sick, why did I do this? Etc. I don't think it's a bad idea but a lot of people wouldn't take it seriously and the only ones that would take it seriously brings us to it's generally not something most people, especially the ones that needed it, want to do as a group, especially with classmates. You mean health class? That's what I thought. I assumed that this was just another part of health/gym. Learn about dental dams one day, and learn about emotional dams the next. Once we can remove Puritan sex is bad values from all health classes, then I guess this would be a fair comment. Too many religious schools like mine just go for standard examples as almost the entirety of health class. Nothing but fear-mongering and a quick cover of the human body's reproductive system, yori. Not everyone is American BTW. Evil sex isn't really a theme for most people. You know health class was more than sex editor. I mean, I had sex ed in a red state public school and despite the fact I had to test into it and it was our only public high school with a college prep focus I know nothing about what a dental dam is because it was never brought up. Though I can infer its purpose from the name, even if I am fuzzy on the details. I like the idea in general but would make it more broad and general like a self-care class, where kids learn about sleep, diet, exercise, communication, mindfulness and yes, boundaries and emotional regulation could be part of the curriculum. Not everyone would be engaged, but could make a big difference to the overall well-being of the school. That class already exists. It's called health, in our state required in grades 7 and 9. Everything you list is part of the curriculum, along with drugs/alcohol and sex editor. And the kids don't take it seriously because they already know everything. I definitely agree with that. Also making the format more of an open discussion than a regular class would probably help get kids to participate more. I would think it is super stupid. I mean it would be helpful but nobody cares about that. We are teenagers. 100% agree. At most 5 kids out of a class of 30 would take it seriously and would just get bullied for it. I'm saying this because I can't see myself showing up to this class more than a few times a week cause it would be a waste of time. I was also a very academically inclined student that never skipped classes. I think it would need to be emotional health rather than therapy. And I think it would be a great idea if incorporated as a required class or a part of existing health class curriculum. Emotional health is a much better name. High school-aged me would have resented the fuck out of being forced to do that. Crosses a personal boundary, you might say. There is no panacea for human emotion. We're all different. I wouldn't have taken it seriously. We all laughed at the home EC, baking and stuff class, also. After going through college, some basic knowledge like that would have been good. Fuck, at work our janitors go around with like 3 spray bottles and can clean like anything. I feel silly asking, but what are those things? There are for sure some basic home stuff I should have learned while younger. Home EC was the shit. I learned how to make bread. You want to impress a girl? Give her some fresh bread and don't be cheap, use real butter.